Today let's talk about how we shift gears on a motorcycle. We'll see 3 different ways to do it. The basic shifting, like beginner riders do it, the clutchless shifting, both with and without quick shifter, and another method for more advanced riders, which makes our shifting very smooth and quick. Weirdly enough, all those 3 different ways are closely related. As always, please like, share and subscribe, check out my video courses, check out my Instagram and so on. Let's go! First of all, let's look at the most basic shifting style, like they teach us on motorcycle courses. When we accelerate and need to upshift, we close the throttle, pull in the clutch, pull the shifter up all the way, release it, then release the clutch and go back on the throttle. To downshift, we do the opposite. We roll off the throttle, pull in the clutch, push the shifter down all the way, release it, slowly release the clutch to avoid abrupt engine braking, and go back on the throttle if we need to. After a little practice, it becomes pretty simple, but still, there can be some mistakes which beginner riders can make. Let's look at them. The mistake which usually only completely new riders make is they look down at the controls, at the clutch, at the throttle, and sometimes even down at the shifter lever. Obviously, we should stop doing it as fast as we can. We should look on the road ahead of us, and our controls we must be able to operate without looking at them. Luckily, this mistake usually disappears quickly with some practice. The next mistake is when the shifting process just takes too long. When I described the shifting process, roll off the throttle, pull in the clutch, upshift, release the clutch, go back on the gas, it seems like a lot is going on, but actually all this stuff we do almost simultaneously. So the whole process of shifting should take less than a second of the time. It should look somewhat like this. If it takes significantly more and you noticeably lose speed when upshifting, you can work a bit more on the process of shifting. You even can do it on a stationary bike. Roll off the throttle, pull in the clutch, upshift, release the clutch, go back on the gas. Repeat it several times until it becomes an automatic process. Next common mistake happens on downshifting. People release the clutch too fast, which makes the bike jerk a lot because of sudden engine braking. When we downshift, the gear ratio of our gearbox changes, so our engine will have to spin faster for the same RPM of the rear wheel, which makes the engine braking much more powerful for a moment. That's why if we downshift and then just dump the clutch, we'll experience this. To avoid that, on downshifting we have to release the clutch more carefully and slowly. And the fourth common mistake in shifting, which especially is frequent for people who learned to drive cars earlier than bikes, is upshifting too early. Bike engines are usually much more performance biased to the upper RPM. If we try to upshift somewhere in the mid-range, like we normally do in cars, we'll end up in lower RPM range, which will result in worse performance of our bike. We'll have worse acceleration and worse gas mileage. Usually, it's okay for motorcycle engines to rev them a bit more than cars, so don't upshift too early. Now let's move on to the clutchless shifting. Why are we doing it? Is something wrong with the previous method? Like Edwin Starr said once, absolutely nothing! We learn the clutchless shifting because it's an important step to the next step of shifting, which I'll describe later on. And we do it so we can feel ourselves like a great motorbike racer, saving those precious tenths of the seconds on shifting. Upshifting is easier, so let's learn it first. When we accelerate, we can very briefly cut the power and simultaneously upshift without using the clutch. For a moment, we need to unload our transmission to allow us engage the next gear. We can do it by cutting the throttle briefly, like this. The whole trick is this. We need to cut the throttle and get back on it super fast. That's pretty much the key to clutchless upshifting. We just cut the gas momentarily and upshift at the same moment. Another important thing is that we can shift like this only when we are accelerating pretty fast, not necessarily at full throttle, but pretty quickly. If we accelerate gradually, we won't have such a big difference when we cut the throttle, so the gear will engage not as smooth as it should. By the way, the same usually goes for shifting with a quick shifter. Quick shifter momentarily cuts the power from the engine by cutting the ignition briefly. Obviously, it works better than this, but even with a quick shifter, bike still shifts rather roughly if we try to upshift when we accelerating slowly. That's why a lot of people complain about badly working quick shifters, when in reality they just are using them a bit wrong. Quick shifters are intended more for fast accelerations. For slower ones, it is still better to use the clutch. So if we do everything correctly, our upshifting should look somewhat like this. With downshifting, it's a bit more complicated. To downshift without a clutch, we need to do just the opposite of what we were doing while upshifting. Now, we are decelerating, which we obviously do with the closed throttle. And to downshift, we need to quickly open and then close the throttle, when downshifting simultaneously. Just like with upshifting, the key is in our hand. We need to make this move very quickly to achieve a smooth shifting. What makes it even more difficult is that since we are decelerating, it's highly likely that we are on the brakes. So, to downshift, we need to be able to open and close the throttle very fast and at the same time maintain the front brake. It is possible, but it definitely takes some practice. If we do everything right, the downshifting should look like this. With clutchless shifting, people often ask if it is safe for the gearbox. Well, it is definitely not very good for your gearbox. Unlike in normal shifting, now we have the engine with all its mass connected to the input of the gearbox, which definitely results in bigger impact on the gears when they engage. On the other hand, I don't think it's very bad either. A lot of people practice clutchless shifting without any major consequences. So yes, I'd say it definitely puts more stress on your gearbox, but it's not like it will immediately disintegrate when you start doing clutchless shifting. And now let's move on to the last type of shifting, which combines two previous together. It makes your bike shift very fast and very smooth at the same time. What we do here is essentially a clutchless shifting, but, well, with the clutch. For example, when we need to upshift, we do this fast motion with our wrist and upshift. But now at the same time we also quickly pull in and release the clutch, also very briefly. All those three things, clutch, throttle and shifting, happen simultaneously and must be timed correctly, so it takes a little practice to do it. But as a result, we get very fast and super smooth shifting, which we can use with the gradual acceleration as well as fast acceleration, without putting additional stress to the gearbox. Win-win situation. We do the throttle, the clutch and the shifter moves all at the same time. Here is the result. Notice how fast and smooth the shifting process is. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching and liking this video. Ride safe and have a great day. Bye.